Welcome to Things You Should Know, Civil War Edition. Today we'll talk about the skirmish known as Drywood Creek, which has another name, the Battle of Two Mules, to commemorate the two leaders who fought there. This happened near Republic, Missouri on September 2nd, 1861. The victory at the Battle of Wilson's Creek had buoyed General Sterling Price and his men. Fresh off the Confederate victory, Price and his men occupied Springfield, Missouri. They prepared for about a month before heading northwest with 10,000 poorly trained Confederate soldiers. Their mission was to secure Fort Scott, Kansas. Kansas was pro-Union, and Fort Scott was under the control of what the Confederates called jayhawkers. These jayhawkers were using Fort Scott as a base to raid the pro-slavery portions of Missouri. The commander of the jayhawkers was U.S. Senator James M. Lane. As a side note, jayhawkers is a term that came to prominence just before the American Civil War in Bleeding, Kansas, where it was adopted by militant bands affiliated with the Free State cause. These bands, known as jayhawkers, were guerrilla fighters who often clashed with pro-slavery groups from Missouri, known at the time as the Border Ruffians. After the Civil War, the word jayhawker became synonymous with the people of Kansas. Scouts alerted Senator Lane on September 1st of the approaching Missouri force. In turn, Lane prepared to evacuate Fort Scott from the attack. Early on September 2nd, Lane sent Colonel James Montgomery with 450 cavalry and a 12-pounder mountain howitzer to slow Price's advance. On the afternoon of the 2nd, Price's Missourians marched on to Fort Scott. Around 4:30 p.m., their advance guard crossed Drywood Creek at Hogan's Ford, approximately 2 miles south of Deerfield, and collided with Lane's men there. General Price led his Confederate soldiers and pushed an attack, but he found themselves under heavy fire from the Kansans' new breech-loading rifles. In addition, the mountain howitzer that the Kansans were using caused a lot of damage. The Missouri State Guard countered with their muskets and shotguns from the prairie grass. General Price was convinced he was fighting a far larger force than there was, so he reinforced his line of Confederate soldiers from the reserves. Colonel Montgomery, the Union commander, in turn realized he was not only severely outnumbered, but the Kansans were running low on ammunition by this point in the battle. Taking the safer bet, Montgomery fell back as Price moved forward. Montgomery arrived back at Fort Scott, and Senator Lane took the Union troops north of Fort Scott to guard the approaches to Kansas City, while Sterling advanced the Confederates north towards Lexington. There, Sterling began recruiting more Confederates as he traveled. The estimated casualties for the battle was 14 U.S. soldiers, and it was an unknown number of Confederate Missouri Guard that were killed. Join us next week for the First Battle of Lexington, September 13th to 20th, 1861.